The scent hit me before the door fully opened. Soft, floral, expensive, and absolutely not haze. It drifted in first, slipping through the crack like a ghost, brushing against my face with an intimacy that didn't belong in my home. I felt it before I processed it, a tightening in my chest, a prickling at the base of my skull, a slow, acidic burn low in my stomach. My wife stepped inside a second later, keys clinking, hair tousled, eyes too bright for a woman who claimed she was just stuck late at the office. I had expected relief. Instead, that scent, someone else's perfume, told another story. She froze when she saw me. "Hey," she whispered, closing the door behind her, voice barely above a breath. "You're still up?" Still up. Like I didn't wait 3 hours past the time she said she'd be home. Like I hadn't called her twice and got only one clipped text back. In a meeting. "Can we talk later?" But I didn't say any of that. I just stared at her, throat too thick to speak. The perfume settled in the air between us like evidence. She walked past me, dropping her purse onto the counter. The fabric of her blouse swayed, slightly wrinkled, slightly damp at the collar. Maybe sweat, maybe something else. Her hands trembled faintly as she reached for a glass, filling it with water, avoiding my eyes in a way that made the room feel smaller. "Traffic was insane," she murmured. "Traffic. At 11:47 p.m. I forced air into my lungs. "You smell different." Her hand paused halfway to her lips. A second of stillness. Then she laughed, a soft, practiced sound that didn't match the tension in her shoulders. "Oh, that." One of the interns had a new perfume. She hugged everyone when she left. A shrug. "She's quitting. Emotional day." The lie was clean, polished, quick. Too quick. I nodded slowly, pretending to accept it, though something sharp and electric crawled through my veins. This wasn't the first strange moment. For weeks she'd been drifting, subtle at first, then harder to ignore. Shorter kisses, longer showers, messages she tilted her phone away to read. Night she came home smelling faintly of hotel soap, of wine, of something not us. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt like a line had been crossed. She took a long drink of water. I watched the movement of her throat, the way her eyes flicked to the hallway as if checking whether something, or someone, had followed her home. The shadows on her face told a story she wasn't brave enough to speak. "Are you okay?" she asked. I was worried. "I told you I was in a meeting. You didn't answer when I called." She set the glass down with a soft clink. She finally looked at me, really looked, and there was something like guilt buried deep in her expression. Or fear. Or both. "I didn't hear my phone," she said. Another clean lie. I stepped closer, lifting a strand of her hair between my fingers. The perfume lingered there like a whisper, too fresh to blame on a stray hug. My hand shook, and I hoped she didn't notice. "You're home now," I said quietly, pulling back before I said something I couldn't take back. "That's what matters." I moved toward the bedroom, heart pounding, needing distance, needing time. But behind me, I heard her exhale shakily, as if relieved the confrontation had ended, as if she'd escaped something. For now, the night was silent except for the sound of her shower running. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the water, imagining her washing off that perfume, scrubbing away traces of wherever she had been, scrubbing away someone else. The thought twisted inside me. I shut my eyes, but even in darkness I saw fragments, her smile drifting away from me, her phone lighting up in another room, her sudden burst of secrecy, her excuses that sounded more like rehearsals. For years, I believed we were solid. For years, I thought loyalty was our foundation. But foundations crack long before buildings fall. The shower stopped. After a moment, she climbed into bed beside me. Her skin smelled like our soap now, familiar and safe. Too safe, like she knew exactly what scent she needed to hide beneath. She curled into me, settling her head on my chest as though nothing had changed, as though she wasn't bringing ghosts into our home. "I missed you today," she whispered. And for a heartbeat, I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. Instead, I swallowed the ache rising in my throat. "I miss you too." Her fingers traced slow circles on my arm. The gesture used to calm me. Tonight it made my stomach knot. Every touch felt like it might be borrowed, stolen from another man's embrace, reproposed for me like a lie. She fell asleep quickly. I didn't. When her breathing deepened, I slid out of bed, moving quietly into the living room. I stood there in the dark, staring at nothing, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the distant passing of cars, the echo of her soft laugh earlier, the one that didn't reach her eyes. The perfume still lingered faintly in the air, a ghost refusing to leave. I grabbed her jacket from the back of the couch. The scent was strongest along the collar. I closed my eyes, inhaling sharply. The floral notes were intoxicating, unfamiliar, intimate. Whoever wore it had been close to her, too close. The truth hovered at the edge of my mind, refusing to fully take shape. I opened her purse mechanically, not sure what I was looking for. Receipts, a hotel key, a number written on a torn scrap of paper. Something, anything, concrete. I found nothing but normal items. Makeup, wallet, charger, gum. Then my fingers brushed something folded at the bottom, a parking stub. I slid it out and held it under the dim light from the hallway. Ridgeway Towers parking, 9:52 p.m. She didn't work anywhere near Ridgeway Towers. But I knew what was there, a boutique hotel, a wine bar, and an upscale fusion restaurant she once said was too pretentiously expensive for normal people like us. My pulse hammered. I couldn't breathe. A cold sweat broke across my neck. The stub trembled in my hand. I sank into the couch, feeling the weight of it all pressing down on me. My wife had lied. Again. And now I held a piece of proof warm from her purse, carrying her fingerprints. Her fingerprints and someone else's perfume. A war raged inside me. Part of me wanted to wake her up and demand answers. Another part feared what those answers would be. I sat there for nearly an hour, staring at that parking slip like it might explain itself, like it might rewrite reality if I held it long enough. Finally, exhausted, I returned to bed. I placed the stub on my nightstand, a silent witness, and lay there listening to her sleep, deep, untroubled, peaceful. I envied her. In the morning she moved like everything was normal. She hummed while making coffee, scrolling through her phone, smiling at things she didn't show me. Her hair glowed in the sunlight. She kissed my cheek as she walked by, warm and familiar and devastating. I studied her the way you study a painting you've seen 1,000 times but suddenly realize might be a forgery. "You're quiet," she said. "Didn't sleep much." "You worry too much," she replied with a gentle smile, brushing her thumb along my jaw. "I'm here, okay? Here, with me, in our kitchen, in our life, and yet so far away." She went to shower, leaving her phone face down on the counter. It buzzed once. Then again, 3 rapid vibrations in a row. My pulse spiked. I stared at it, frozen. Another buzz. Curiosity collided with dread. I wasn't the kind of man who snooped. I believed in trust. But trust felt like a naive luxury this morning. The buzzing stopped. A moment of silence. Then one final vibration. I reached for the phone. My hand hovered an inch above it. Then I pulled back sharply, heart pounding. I couldn't bring myself to cross that line. Not yet. I needed to be sure, really sure, before doing something that might break us even further. The shower turned off. I stepped away. She came out wrapped in a towel, humming again, moving lightly, carefree. Her phone stayed silent, secrets tucked safely behind a black screen. She kissed me before leaving the house. "Love you," she said softly. I whispered it back. The words tasted wrong. After she left, I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the empty doorway. The silence grew heavy, thick with unanswered questions and fears I didn't want to name. I opened the drawer beside me, pulled out the parking stub, and set it in front of me. Something inside me had shifted. Cracked. Maybe today I would learn the truth. Or maybe today would be the beginning of losing everything. By noon, the parking stub had burned a permanent mark into my mind. I took it with me to wake, slipped into my wallet where a picture of us used to live. The photo had fallen out months ago, and I never bothered putting it back. I told myself it was because the plastic was loose. Sitting at red lights, I knew better. At my desk, spreadsheets blurred into unreadable blocks of color. My coworkers moved around me, laughing, typing, living in the safety of their own illusions. My coffee went cold untouched. The only thing that felt real was a thin, creased rectangle pressed against my thigh every time I shifted. Ridgeway Towers. I Googled it during lunch, even though I already knew what I'd find. Photos of the glass and steel building reflected the sky like it wasn't part of the same world as us. The boutique hotel on the 18th floor, with its expensive rooftop bar. Reviews talk about intimate atmospheres and perfect for date nights. My chest tightened. I tried to imagine a group meeting there, maybe some late client dinner, but she would have mentioned it. In our kind of life, anything fancy enough to be considered a treat became a story to tell, a shared smile, a joke about how poor we were. Lately, she hadn't been sharing as much. Around 1, my phone buzzed. It was a text from her. "Hey, crazy morning. You okay?" 3 words echoing in my head. "You okay?" She was checking the temperature. I realized, not asking how I was, measuring how much I knew. My thumbs hovered above the keyboard. "Yeah, just tired." "You?" A minute passed. Then another. The tiny typing. Bubble appeared and disappeared twice. "Same. Last night ran late. I'll be home earlier today. Promise. Maybe we can actually eat together like adults. LOL. I stared at the message until the letters blurred. Home earlier. Eat together. Like adults. My heart twisted in 2 different directions. Part of me clung to the promise like a starving animal offered scraps. Another part saw it for what it might be, a preemptive offering of normalcy to smooth over whatever jagged edges I'd started to feel. I typed back, "I'd like that." I didn't add, "And I'm going to find out where you really were." The decision lodged itself in me quietly, like a blade slipping between ribs. No dramatic realization, no burst of courage, just a tired, resigned sense that I couldn't live in this gray fog much longer. If she said she'd be home early, that meant she wasn't trapped at the office. It gave me a window. I left work at 5 on the dot, ignoring the surprised look from my manager. I told him I had a personal thing. It wasn't a lie. Not exactly. Outside, the sky was the color of steel wool, clouds low and heavy. I drove without music, no distraction, every sound from the car amplified, the dull hum of the engine, the faint rattle in the dashboard, my own uneven breathing. Ridgeway Towers rose ahead like some polished monument to people richer and more careless than us. The parking entrance glowed with blue lead lights, neat rows of cars disappearing into its mouth. I hesitated at the turn signal, fingers tight on the wheel. This was it. The moment I could still choose not to know. I turned in anyway. I took a ticket, the barrier lifting with a mechanical jerk, and drove slowly through the spiral. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, throwing harsh shadows across concrete pillars. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel. I parked in a corner spot on level 3, far from the elevator. For a few seconds I just sat there, palms open on my thighs, staring at nothing. Part of me expected someone to knock on the window and tell me to go home, to stop playing detective in a life that wasn't meant for mystery. No one did. Of course no one did. I pocketed my keys and walked toward the elevators, footsteps echoing in the emptiness. Every sound felt louder, like the building itself was listening. In the elevator, I watched my reflection in the stainless steel doors. I looked ordinary, a little older than the last time I'd really studied myself. Tired. Lines had formed along my forehead that I didn't remember owning. My eyes had a hunted look I didn't recognize. The button for the 18th floor stared back at me. I pressed it before I could think too much. Soft music played as the elevator climbed. Something instrumental, vaguely jazzy. My stomach knotted tighter with each ding. When the doors opened, I stepped out into muted luxury. The hallway smelled different from the parking garage, like citrus and something floral, but controlled, curated. Lamps with warm golden light lined the walls. A sign pointed left for the Skyline Lounge and right for hotel reception. I turned left first. The lounge entrance was framed by glass. Inside, low lighting brushed across the edges of high-backed chairs, small tables, clinking glasses. People sat in pairs and groups, talking softly, their conversations lost beneath the sound of ambient music and distant laughter. I scanned the room through the glass. My heart pounded so loud I could feel it in my ears. No sign of her. Of course there wasn't. It was early. Too early for a repeat performance, if that's what this was. I turned away, throat dry, and walked slowly down the hall. I passed a reception area, where a woman in a neat blazer smiled at me out of habit. I didn't smile back. I couldn't. I stopped near a discreet corner where a map of the building was mounted on the wall. That's when I saw it. Level 18 conference rooms. 3 of them. Small, medium, large. It was plausible she'd had a meeting here. Plausible. Possible. Not likely. I took out my phone and checked the time. 5:43 p.m. She wouldn't leave work for another hour at least. Maybe more. If she planned to come here, it would be later. A ridiculous plan formed in my head. Follow her. See where she really goes. Let reality present itself instead of trying to piece together something from scraps and half-truths. I left Ridgeway Towers with nothing more than the knowledge that it existed, that it was real, that I hadn't imagined the stub. It should have felt like nothing. It felt like a loaded gun. To kill time, I parked near her office building a little after 6. I'd never done that before, never waited to spy on her. The parking lot was half full. Lights glowed in some of the windows above, dull rectangles against the darkening sky. I sat in my car with the engine off, watching the entrance. Men and women walked out in 2s and 3s, some alone, some laughing, some scrolling on their phones as they headed to their cars. Every time a woman with long brown hair appeared, my chest seized. Then I saw her. She stepped outside with someone, a man I didn't recognize. They weren't touching, but they were close. Too close. Their heads bent toward each other as they talked, her hand brushing his arm once, a small, instinctive movement. He said something that made her laugh. An open, relaxed laugh I hadn't heard from her in weeks. My fingers curled around the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went pale. The man was tall, dressed in a fitted shirt and blazer, his posture easy, confident. He carried himself like someone used to being looked at. There was a casual intimacy in their body language, nothing overt, nothing you could point to in isolation. But the whole picture snapped into place in my mind with terrifying clarity. She wasn't different with everyone, just with him, and not with me. They walked to the edge of the parking lot and stopped, talking a little longer. She checked her phone. He leaned against the car, watching her with an unreadable expression. The air between them felt thick even from where I sat today. I waited for her to say goodnight and head to her own car. Instead, he gestured toward the street. She hesitated. Then she nodded. He moved toward a sleek, dark sedan. My heart dropped. She wasn't driving. She was getting into his car. My hand flew to the door handle, instinct roaring louder than rational thought. I imagined myself marching over, yanking the door open, spitting questions into her shocked face while the man stood there, exposed, defenseless. I didn't move. I watched her slide into the passenger seat, watched him walk around to the driver's side. They pulled out of the lot, headlights cutting through the twilight. Every impulse screamed at me, "Follow." I turned the key. The engine came to life. I pulled out a few seconds after them, hanging back, keeping 2 cars between us like in a bad movie. My breathing came in shallow bursts. They drove across town. I recognized the direction long before the building appeared in front of us, tall and polished and soaked in warm light. Ridgeway Towers. My fingers went numb around the wheel. He turned into the parking entrance. So did I, a few cars behind. The fluorescent lights painted everything stark again. I stayed far enough back that they wouldn't notice me as they spiraled up. They parked on level 3. Of course they did. I pulled into a spot farther away, close to a concrete pillar. From there, I watched. They got out, talking softly, their voices too faint to hear. She pushed her hair behind her ear in that nervous but excited way I knew intimately, the way she used to do with me on our early dates. The movement cut through me like glass. They walked toward the elevator together. At the last second, he moved slightly behind her, hand hovering at the small of her back, guiding her forward. He didn't touch her fully, not yet, but the intention was there, clear as daylight. The elevator doors opened. They stepped inside, and they were gone. I sat there with my hands shaking so hard I could barely keep them on the steering wheel. This was it. Not just suspicion. Not just a strange scent or inconsistent excuses. She was here, with him, at the same building where that parking stub had been printed. I could still tell myself they were just having a drink. Maybe some harmless, innocent thing. A goodbye. A work celebration. But the lie felt flimsier than ever. I didn't know how long I sat there. A few minutes. Maybe 10. Time blurred, stretched, folded in on itself. Finally, I shut off the car and forced myself out. My legs felt unsteady. The air tasted stale, metallic. There was another elevator at the far end of the level. I took it, alone, staring at the floor numbers as they climbed. 9, 12, 15, 18. Ding! The doors opened. The lounge area looked different now that I knew she was somewhere inside. Every laugh sounded sharper. Every shadow felt heavy. The music brushed against my nerves like sandpaper. I stepped toward the glass entrance again. The hostess glanced up with a polite smile. "Table for one?" she asked. My gaze slid past her, toward the bar. I didn't see them at first. Too many faces. Too many little pockets of intimacy. Too many pairs hunched over drinks. Then my eyes caught on a familiar tilt of the head. A familiar curve of a shoulder. There she was. Lena, my wife, sitting at a corner table with a man from the parking lot. Her body leaned toward him, one hand around a drink, the other resting on the table close to his. Their heads were bowed in close conversation. The lighting kissed the side of her face, bringing out a softness I used to think belonged only to me. I couldn't hear what they were saying. I could only see that she laughed easily, eyes shining, shoulders relaxed. She looked free, lighter than I'd seen her at home in months. And then, because the universe is cool, she reached across the small space between them and touched his wrist. A brief touch, a simple, casual contact. His face softened. Something in me fractured. "Sir," the hostess said again, closer now. "Table for one, or will someone be joining you?" My throat closed. For a second, I considered it, walking into that scene, sitting down at their table like I belonged there, forcing the truth into the open. But I couldn't breathe just imagining it. "I'm meeting someone. I'm managed. I'm just going to—" I gestured vaguely toward the hallway. She nodded, turning back to her podium. I retreated, every step heavier than the last. Out of their line of sight, I pressed my back against the cool wall and slid down until I was sitting on the carpet, knees bent, hands buried in my hair. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I wanted to throw up. Images collided inside my mind. Our wedding day, her head on my chest at night, her text that morning, her saying, "Love you," as she walked out the door. Had she already planned this when she kissed my cheek? Had she been planning this for weeks? My phone buzzed in my pocket, making me flinch. I pulled it out with numb fingers. A new message from her. "Leaving work in a bit. Home by 8? I stared at the screen. She was sitting less than 20 meters away, with him, in a place she'd lied about. And she was texting me the script of the life we were supposed to be living. Something inside me went very, very still. I typed, slowly, carefully, "Okay, I'll see you then." I didn't know whether she saw my answer immediately. I didn't know whether she glanced at her phone, smiled, and tucked it away while continuing to lean into this man's orbit. I just knew that when I finally stood up, my legs weren't shaking anymore. I walked back to the elevator. I didn't look through the glass again. I didn't need to. The images were seared into my memory now. In the car, I sat for a long moment with both hands on the wheel. I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. I didn't even know how. Every possible conversation played out in my head like a badly rehearsed play. I screamed. She cried. I stayed quiet. She lied. I asked calm questions. She turned them inside out until I was the unreasonable one. I needed more than the sight of her at a table. More than my own interpretations of body language and sense and timing. I needed something undeniable to put between us. Something she couldn't bend with words. Because I knew her. Knew how she could twist a story until the edges blurred and you weren't sure what you'd seen anymore. I pulled out of the parking structure and drove home on autopilot, headlights carving the road ahead. The sky had darkened fully now, streetlights casting long pools of yellow on the asphalt. The world outside looked the same as it always did. Inside the car, everything was irrevocably altered. When I got home, the house felt colder. I moved through it in a daze, picking up small objects that suddenly seemed foreign. The framed photo on the shelf, the mug she always used, the throw blanket she curled under on the couch. Every item was part of the life we'd built. Every item felt like a prop now. I ended up in the bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed where we'd once fallen asleep tangled together without thinking about it. The parking stub was still on my nightstand, waiting. I picked it up, then set it down again. I took out my phone and opened the search bar. I typed slowly, how to know if your spouse is cheating. The results flooded the screen, articles, lists, horror stories. I scrolled through them, reading bullet points that felt like descriptions of the last month of my life. Secretive behavior, unexplained absences, changes in intimacy, new scents. I should have felt validated. Instead, I felt sick. A few results were different, services offering to help you find the truth. Private investigators, discreet surveillance, professional confirmation of what your gut already knew. I stared at one website. The photo on the homepage showed a man looking out a window, his reflection shattered by raindrops. It was cliché, but the expression on his face matched the hollow feeling in my chest. Hiring someone felt extreme. It felt like something paranoid people did. People who didn't trust their partners at all. But then, did I trust her? The memory of her hand resting on that man's wrist answered for me. My thumb hovered over the phone number listed at the bottom of the page. I didn't press call. Not yet. Instead, I sent an email. Short, vague. I used a new address I created on the spot, one that didn't have my name attached. I think my wife is lying about where she goes at night. I need to know the truth before I confront her. Can we talk? I hit send before I could overthink it. The room was so quiet I could hear the hum of the heater kicking on. The clock on the bedside table glowed 7:31 p.m. She'd be home soon. And I had to decide who I was going to be when she walked through that door. The man who pretended not to know, or the man who demanded answers he might not be able to survive. When the lock finally turned at 7:54, my heart clenched so hard it almost hurt. I stood up. The scent hit me first. Not as strong as last night, but unmistakable, soft, floral, expensive. Someone else's perfume. And my wife, standing in the doorway, smiling like nothing was wrong. She stepped inside with practiced lightness, the same soft footsteps I'd known for years, yet they sent a chill through me now. Her smile was warm, casual, the kind she offered when she didn't want questions. She set her purse down, shaking off the cold, humming faintly, too faintly, a forced little melody that died in her throat as soon as she glanced my way. "You're home," she said, as if that were the surprising part. Her hair was slightly windblown. Her lipstick had faded, but not entirely. A faint crease marked her wrist where a bracelet must have rested earlier, one she wasn't wearing now. She looked composed, and I hated how easy it seemed for her. I forced a neutral tone. "You're earlier than usual." She smiled again, this time softer. "I told you I'd try. Long day. I just want to relax with you tonight." Relax. My jaw tightened at the word. An odd buzzing filled my ears as though my body were bracing for impact. She didn't come close enough to kiss me. Instead, she moved past me toward the kitchen, opening the fridge, pulling out leftovers, moving with the comfort of a woman entirely unaware that her life was one breath away from splitting open. "Did you eat?" she asked. "No." She paused. "Are you okay? You seem distant." I had rehearsed 1,000 versions of this moment in the car. Questions delivered calmly. A confrontation crafted with surgical precision. Something rational, measured. Instead, the truth rose inside me like a tide. "I saw you today." She froze. Not fully, just a hitch in her breath, the tiniest pause in her motion. But it was enough. Enough to tell me that whatever excuse she'd planned had just splintered. Slowly, she turned to face me, her expression a perfect mask of confusion. "Saw me? Where?" "Ridgeway Towers." A beat. 2. She didn't blink, didn't gasp, didn't crumble. Instead, she inhaled once, deeply, closing her eyes for a fraction of a second. When she opened them, something in her face had changed. Not guilt, not fear, resolve. She placed the leftovers on the counter with deliberate gentleness. "Okay," she said quietly. Let's talk. Not what? Not why were you there. Not your misunderstanding. Just let's talk. My whole body went cold. Who is he? I asked, the steel in my voice surprising even me. She looked down at her hands, rubbing her palms together, like warming them before stepping into a confession. His name is Rowan. My stomach dropped at hearing it spoken aloud. It made everything real, tangible, a third presence in our marriage, a name with weight. How long? I asked. She lifted her eyes, and something shattered in them even before she spoke. A few months. The words punched the air out of me. Months. Not weeks. Not days. Months. My throat tightened, a burning pressure climbing upward, but no sound came out. She stepped closer, not touching, just closing the space enough that I could smell that faint perfume still lingering on her skin. It wasn't Hayes. It didn't belong in our home. It made my chest ache. I didn't plan it, she said softly. I swear I didn't. He just showed up in my life at a moment when everything felt wrong. Everything. I echoed. Everything between us. She flinched. Not dramatically. Just a small, inward collapse. You weren't here, she whispered. I stared at her in disbelief. I was here every night. No, she said, voice barely holding steady. Your body was. But you weren't. You haven't been for a long time. The accusation stung, slicing through my anger with something messier. Guilt, defensiveness, confusion. What does that even mean? I demanded. Give me one example, just one, of how I wasn't here. Her eyes filled, but she didn't look away. When my father got sick last year, she said, you brushed it off like it was an inconvenience. You kept saying he'd be fine, like I was overreacting. My chest tightened with something sharp. I was trying to reassure you. No, you were trying to avoid the discomfort, she shot back, voice cracking. I needed you to sit with me in the Fae. You wouldn't. My mind raced through memories I'd buried under practicality. Her crying in the kitchen while I told her everything would be fine. Her sitting on the couch alone late at night, shoulders shaking, while I lay in bed telling myself she'd join me soon. I looked away, shame flickering under my skin. She saw it. That's not an excuse, she said softly. Nothing I've done is excusable. I'm not trying to justify it. I'm trying to explain the places where we went silent with each other. My pulse thundered in my ears. So you found someone else instead, I said. That's your explanation. She swallowed hard. No. I found someone who asked the right questions at the right time. Someone who saw I was drowning, and I let him see it. The room seemed to tilt. What is he to you? I asked. What do you feel for him? She hesitated, the longest hesitation of the night, and that pause alone felt like betrayal. I care about him, she said finally. My breath left me in a slow, painful exhale. Care. The word was a dagger. But I love you, she said quickly. God, I love you. That never changed, even when everything else did. My vision blurred for a second as a wave of raw emotion surged up. Then why him? I asked, voice breaking. Why wasn't I enough? Her lips trembled, tears forming, but not falling. I don't know how to answer that without hurting you, she whispered. You already did. Silence swelled between us, thick and suffocating, stretching until she finally spoke again. Nothing physical happened until last night. I staggered backward as if she'd slapped me. Until last night. My stomach twisted violently. Last night. My voice cracked. You told me you were at a meeting. I know. You came home smelling like someone else. I know. Her tears finally fell then, slow, heavy. I'm so sorry. I pressed a hand to my forehead, a dizzy wave crashing through me. I had imagined this moment 100 different ways, but none of them prepared me for the softness in her regret. The clarity, the painful honesty, everything inside me felt like breaking glass. You lied to me, I whispered. Every day, she replied, her voice hollow, and I hate myself for it. I didn't realize I'd moved until I found myself pacing the length of the kitchen, running a hand through my hair, shaking. What do you want from me? I asked, "What do you expect me to do with this?" "I don't expect anything," she said, voice fragile but steady. "I only know I can't lie anymore." I stared at her, really stayed, searching her face for the woman I married, the woman I thought I understood. Pieces of her were still there, pieces I didn't recognize anymore. "I ended it," she said quietly. I froze. "With him," she clarified. "Tonight, before you saw us." A hollow laugh escaped me. "Really? That's what you were doing? Having a breakup date?" "No," she said, shaking her head hard. "I was telling him I couldn't keep living a double life. I told him I loved my husband. I told him I needed to go home and try to fix this." My breathing faltered. Fix this. The word stabbed but also softened something inside me, dangerously. "Why did you touch him?" I asked, voice raw, "if you were ending it." She closed her eyes. "Habit. Familiarity. I shouldn't have. I know how it looked. But I swear to you, I said goodbye." My fist tightened at my sides. "You said goodbye," I repeated softly. "But you weren't done. Not really." She opened her eyes then, and I saw it, the war inside her, the part of her that wanted me, the part of her that wanted something she thought she couldn't have with me anymore. "Do you want to stay with him?" I asked. "If I walked away right now, would you go to him?" Her breath hitched. "I want," she swallowed, tears streaking down her cheeks. "I want the version of us that we used to be." "That version is gone," I said. She flinched. Then, quietly, "I know." The quiet that followed was different from before. Not empty, weighted, heavy with a truth too big to cram back inside either of us. She took a step toward me. I stepped back. She stopped. Her voice trembled. "Do you hate me?" I shook my head. "No, that would be easier." Her face crumpled. She whispered, "What happens now?" I didn't know. I didn't know if I still loved her in the way I once had. I didn't know if we could rebuild anything from the wreckage. I didn't know why part of me still wanted to reach for her, and another part wanted to run until I forgot my own name. I didn't have answers, but I knew one thing. Something fundamental between us had shifted tonight. Something irreversible. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed on the counter. A new email. I glanced at the preview. It was from the private investigator. Subject: inquiry regarding your wife. Message: I reviewed your details. There is something you should see. Call me tonight. Urgent. My pulse stopped, then surged. She saw the look on my face. "What is that?" she whispered. I turned the phone over so she couldn't see the screen. And in that moment, I knew the truth wasn't done with us yet. The worst part was still coming. I turned the phone face down on the counter and felt her eyes follow the motion like it was a gun being drawn. Her breath caught, soft, terrified, and the fragile quiet between us tightened like a wire pulled between two shaking hands. "What was that?" she asked, barely audible. I didn't answer immediately. I didn't trust my voice. My heart was pounding so violently it felt like the entire kitchen vibrated with it. The truth I had believed I was chasing. The truth she had just spilled in shards across the floor. Neither of us realized there was another truth, deeper, darker, hiding beneath our feet like a sinkhole. My silence scared her. "Please," she whispered, "don't shut me out now. Not after everything I just told you." I forced myself to breathe. "It's nothing." It wasn't nothing. "Then why won't you show me?" "Because you've shown me enough tonight," I said, more harshly than intended. She winced. A tremor ran through my fingers as I picked up the phone and walked toward the hallway. I needed space. A solid surface beneath me before I opened that email. But she followed. "Where are you going?" "To call him." "Who?" "A private investigator." The words dropped into the space between us, and I watched her entire body jolt as if hit by a physical force. What?" Her voice cracked. I turned to face her. "I hired someone. Well, I contacted someone. After last night. After the perfume. After the lies." Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God." I didn't know whether her horror came from guilt, Off here. She stepped closer, reaching for me, then stopping herself. You don't need to do that. I told you everything. I swear, I told you everything. I held up the phone. Then what is he talking about? I asked quietly. What does he think I need to see? She shook her head, frantic. I don't know. There's nothing else. Rowan and what I told you is the whole truth. I ended it, I swear. Did you? I asked. Or is that just a version of the story you can live with? Her breath shuddered. I'm telling you the truth. I stared at her for a long, painful moment, then stepped into the bedroom and shut the door behind me before she could follow. I could still hear her breathing on the other side, steadying herself, maybe crying, maybe trying not to. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down. I opened the email. There was a short message. Attached is what we found during our initial review. Call immediately. Below it, a single video file. My pulse hammered as I pressed play. The screen went black for a moment, then resolved into grainy security footage, timestamped 2 weeks earlier. A hotel hallway, heavy carpeting, soft lighting, Ridgeway Towers, 18th floor. My breath froze. Rowan appeared first, stepping out of an elevator, checking over his shoulder as though making sure no one had followed. Then she stepped out after him. Lena, her hair pulled into a loose twist, her coat draped over one arm, her face half hidden as she rubbed at her eyes like she'd been crying, or laughing, or both. They weren't touching, but they were aligned, two bodies moving with the familiarity of someone who had rehearsed these steps behind closed doors. I watched them walk down the corridor together, side by side, stopping outside a room. Rowan unlocked the door. He held it open. She hesitated, just for a breath, and looked down at her hands. Then she stepped inside. My vision tunneled. Static filled my ears. The door closed behind them. I sat perfectly still, unable to blink, unable to breathe. My body didn't obey me. My mind didn't either. I replayed the clip, watched every fraction of a second, watched her hesitate, watched her choose. She had said nothing physical happened until last night. But this footage was from 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. A buzzing filled my head, something between a scream and a void. My stomach knotted so sharply I doubled over, gripping the edge of the bed like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to the world. I hit replay again. She followed him into a hotel room. She followed him into a hotel room. She followed him into a hotel room. Each repetition carved deeper into me. I couldn't hear anything outside my own pulse until a faint knock on the bedroom door. Please, she whispered. Please let me in. I couldn't move. Please, she said again, voice cracking. I don't want you to be alone in there. I'm scared of what you're thinking. I stood, and my legs nearly buckled. I opened the door. Her face was streaked with tears, lips trembling. She reached for my arms before realizing I wasn't reaching back. I told you the truth, she whispered. Why won't you believe me? I held up the phone. Did you go to Ridgeway Towers 2 weeks ago? Her expression fell apart in real time. A visible collapse. Her throat bobbed. She backed up a step as if my question had weight. I don't know what you saw, but answer the question. She squeezed her eyes shut. Yes. The word was a crack of thunder. When? I asked. 2 Fridays ago. With him. She nodded, a tiny, broken motion. Did you go into a hotel room with him? She crumbled. She didn't speak, didn't move, didn't try to lie. Her silence was the loudest truth I had ever heard. My knees nearly gave out as everything inside me tore open. When were you planning to tell me that part? I whispered. I tried, she choked out. Tonight, I wanted to come clean about everything. I didn't know how. You told me nothing physical happened until last night. She shook her head violently. I swear, we didn't sleep together that night. I swear to God. We talked for hours. I was breaking down. He was trying to help me. And you needed a private room for that. I asked. Her face twisted. I know how it looks. I know what I made it look like. But nothing happened. Not that night. Then why didn't you tell me? Because I knew how it sounded, she cried. Because I knew you would think exactly what you're thinking right now. And what am I thinking? That I slept with him. That I betrayed you completely. My voice dropped to a whisper. Did you? She hesitated, and that hesitation was the end of us. My chest constricted. My lungs seized. I felt myself sway, my fingers curling into fists so tight my nails bit into my palms. How many times? I asked. She shook her head helplessly. Please don't make me. How many? I demanded. She broke. Her knees gave out and she collapsed against the bed frame, sobbing into her hands. A few, she whispered. A few times. The world tilted. The air disappeared. I felt like I was falling inside my own body. I took a single step back, then another. She reached for me, but I flinched as if boned. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to lose you. I didn't want to lose him. I was a coward. I was weak. I raised a hand, and the room went silent except for her ragged breathing. Stop, I said. Just stop. She froze. Tears streamed down her face, her chest heaving, makeup smeared. For a moment she looked like the woman I married, soft, human, deeply flawed, and somehow that made it hurt worse. Do you still love him? I asked quietly. She closed her eyes. A pause, a trembling inhale. I don't know, she whispered. That was it. Not the affair, not the lies, not even the footage. It was that answer. That answer detonated something deep inside me. A cold, clear calm washed over me, terrifying in its silence. I'm leaving tonight, I said. Her eyes snapped open. No, please, please don't do that. Not like this. Like what? I asked. Like the truth finally came out. She sobbed, reaching for my shirt, but I stepped back again. Please, she begged. We can fix this. I'll do anything. Therapy, honesty, whatever you want. Just don't walk out. I felt tears slip down my cheek before I realized I was crying. You already walked out, I said softly. You just kept coming home afterward. She collapsed into herself, knees pulled to her chest, shaking. I packed the bag without looking at her. Socks, a few shirts, my toothbrush, nothing more. Every object felt lighter than the weight inside my ribs. As I zipped the bag, she lifted her head. Is this goodbye? She whispered. For the first time that night, I looked directly into her eyes. I don't know yet, I said, but I can't breathe in here. She nodded slowly, like someone accepting a sentence she already knew she deserved. I walked past her toward the door. She didn't chase me. She didn't scream. She didn't bargain. She just whispered, trembling, I'm sorry, one more time, so soft I almost didn't hear it. I stepped into the cold night air and closed the door behind me. For the first time in months, I felt the full weight of silence. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A second email from the investigator. There's more. Call immediately. The cold night suddenly felt even colder. The truth wasn't finished with me. Not even close.